welcome to Mindset, Money, Success, a podcast. And I'm your host, Loraine Marshall. And today we have a guest, Kristine McPeak, and she has a life purpose, which is helping people to regulate their emotions. And we've just been having a little chat beforehand, and I was saying, I think I might need some of that. Hi, Kristine.
Hi, Loraine. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So can you expand a little bit on how you help people with their emotions?
Sure. So I just hosted a class. I finished a class and now we're here. And it's a class I host the second Saturday of the month. And this month we focused on it's okay to cry. So I educate people. I have an education degree. I earned it in the early 90s, a bachelor's degree, but life has been my classroom. I never landed a classroom. So I've been learning different techniques and modalities in the last 30 years. And I'm hosting a class next month on increasing your emotional intelligence around anger. So I've learned techniques to help me regulate my emotions and for me to be more approachable and for me to be regulated and more coming from a calm place and not so much a place of stress. So all these different tools I've kind of rolled into my own unique way of teaching. And I do a lot of one-on-one work. I also have a container where I have a group of about 55 women, and we're going deeper this year into emotional intelligence and regulation. And you might see me show up with a little painted rock. Like, I'm probably the only health coach out there in the world who has hundreds of painted rocks as tools, as reminders.
So I've seen, I think I saw a Facebook post with that particular little rock, and it looked bigger than what you've just held up there. I thought it was this big, but obviously it's not. It's only this big. But can you explain a bit more about those rocks then?
Oh my goodness. So I've been in a couple of relationships that haven't been healthy. There's been a lot of 911 calls in one relationship. And another one, I don't know if I ever called the cops. So when I was in this relationship and still having an office and working with people, I'm a level 4 trained healing touch practitioner. Nurses earn credits to take the programs that I've taken, and you have to have a medical degree to learn healing touch. And so I was working with people while I was at home behind the curtains of shame, behind serious dysfunction going on. And a friend came up with her daughters to visit, and we saw a big rock shaped like a piece of cake. It was this thick. It was huge. Mm-hmm. And I saw it on a covered bridge, and I let the teenagers find it. And on the back of it, they had a Facebook group to find it. I thought, well, that's fun. So I started gathering rocks because I've always been a girl who likes nature, and I'll come home with a pretty rock in my pocket. Or I found this stick the other day. I've been looking for it. I lost it, and it's a smile or a frown, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've been collecting these little rocks, and I was a guest to speak at a holistic health fair in 2019. And that night before, I called the police, and I had to go and sleep on my massage table in my office. And I had a bunch of rocks I was painting to give away. They're like fun little love bug rocks, just little giveaways for people to put in their pocket and remember the conversation we might have had at my holistic table. And when it got turned for me to speak, I was following, I call her the matriarch of metaphysics in our area. She just was a tough act to follow. And I was at a place with very little sleep. I was still in trauma mode from the night before. And I had these rocks in my pocket that I had painted from my Institute for Integrative Nutrition year-long program. I was taking that program while I was in that relationship behind the curtains of shame, in a domestic violent relationship. And so doing whatever I could just to survive. Yeah. And in this program, I was going to set it up classroom style and talk at the front of the room and teach. And I get in there and all the chairs are around in a circle. I'm thinking, I can't do this. How can I talk to people in a circle? And I remembered, you've done this before when you taught laughter in a circle. because I became a certified laughter leader like 30 years ago. Ha! Like, ha 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 ha. We can pretend our way to change our brain chemistry through laughing and changing our smile. And so I pulled these rocks out of my pocket, and the rock that came up first was the relationship rock and then the spirituality rock. And these are areas in our life that we could be in or out of balance, 12 areas. Relationship, career, finances. Finances, I've been way out of balance with, and I'll come back around to that piece in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled out those two rocks and I said, well, you're here today to learn about how to manage stress and how to have a more balanced life. And I'll be honest with you guys, I had a rough night last night. And I've had some relationships that have not gone well. At that time with my mother, that's since changed. With my sister, that hasn't changed. And with the man I was living with. And I said, I realized that until I got my relationship with myself and my spirituality and me correct, all the other relationships were going to be out of balance. So those two rocks helped me do a presentation when I was really deer in headlights, under stress from having been spent the night, just the last time I've called 911. Hopefully the only time I'll ever have to call, the last time is the last time. So in that relationship, though, I learned about pointing my finger at him. And there was alcohol involved and alcoholism. And I pointed my finger out of anger, and I realized that I could learn about my relationship with anger. And so I actually, if you're familiar with Entangled No More, in this chapter, Self-Blooming, 20 other authors are in there. Right. I talked about that realization when I was pointing my finger. Yeah. And so I've learned a lot of these things experientially, and I've studied a lot of techniques and tools that help us to calm down our nervous system. So we're going to respond rather than react out of
Yes. I understand that. I do understand that, because I went through a situation in 2020 and I could have quite easily have reacted with anger. But there was something like intuition took over, and I walked away from the situation. And I came into the kitchen, and then the anger came from the bottom of my stomach, up. And I had this phone in my hand, and I remember just like tossing the phone down with the anger, and then thinking, oh, don't do that. You need your phone, pick it off the floor. And then I walked away and went into the bedroom and let out the anger there. And I actually punched my fist into the door stencil, the frame of the door, so I could release some of the anger. When that happened, I came out of that bedroom, and there he was sitting on the sofa as if nothing had happened. And I just sat down. And that was the end of our relationship. Wasn't the end of the abuse, but it was the end of the relationship. So I can understand where you're coming from when you think about the anger, because it just, something took over, and I just knew, don't show that emotion, don't show in front of him. It was really strange. Do you want to continue with that?
Well, yeah, and anger is an indicator. It's like the tip of the iceberg, and it's an indicator that our boundaries are being ignored or crossed. It's an indicator that our needs aren't getting met. It's an indicator that something isn't right for us to take action. So our mind registers anger, and we get ready to fight with our fists or our words, and the mind causes anger to make our jaws really strong. And so I remember throwing an ashtray at this man before I even moved in with him. So we had this history where I wasn't at a place that I saw clearly. I remember jokingly saying, not jokingly, but I don't want to be a Dateline story. Dateline is a program over here in the United States where they do true crime stories, and most of the time, a lot of the times, passionate crimes are caused by intimate partnerships. Yes. And I knew, because I didn't close my mouth and I fought back with him verbally. And that was a pattern that I learned growing up as a teenager with my mother. And I wrote about that in Entangled No More. Now, during 2020, I had studied a lot of techniques. I'd done a lot of work, worked with a lot of clients. And as I was teaching EFT, emotional freedom technique,
Mm-hmm.
tapping. Thankfully, I use that with clients over time because it became a go-to for me. So a lot of these tools, if we learn them, we forget to use them in the moment. We don't have the moments of clarity like you did, like don't do this here, go there.
Mm-hmm.
Our blood leaves the filtering part of our brain, so we're not thinking clearly. And during 2020, I started to feel, so my mom said one time, you're either mad or sad. Well, in 2020, I started to feel sad.
Mm.
And I wrote about how dark that became in the book that just came out, Shadow Alchemy.
Yeah.
And I talked about how I'd almost forgotten to use these tools. And I got to the point where I wasn't going to care if mice chewed through the electrical wires and caused a fire in the house. Like, so I've been around a few blocks. I've been up and down a few roller coaster twisty turvies. And obviously I'm here, right? You're here. We made it out of those situations. But
Yeah.
I knew if I didn't change things, I would continue to get in another unhealthy relationship. So I got way more healthier with myself and did a lot more of the emotional regulating myself around personal things so that I can talk to you about sibling estrangement, and I can talk to you about domestic violence. I can talk to you about all these experiences that I've lived through
Mm-hmm.
from a different lens, from more of a teaching tool. Like, what was my piece? How did I get involved in that? And so through like rapid resolution therapy, that's a technique, of course, a study I've been following for a couple of years. And there's a lot of shifting of your thinking and shifting of your words and putting things into the past tense versus the present or the future. And so that's a technique that I work with people one-on-one, that I'm not able to send you home with tools per se, but I can teach you like EFT, and you can go home and use that. But if you don't use it, like if you only brush your teeth before you go to the dentist on the day before your appointment, your teeth aren't going to be as healthy. If you don't use those tools
Yeah.
consistently,
It's
you
consistency. It's repetition,
you will
isn't it?
it's repetition, and our subconscious loves repetition. So it's that repetition, so that in the moment it might take a little bit of time, but eventually you'll be like, oh yeah, I need to breathe, I need to take a time out, I need to rub my collarbones, I need to do something, I need to walk away, I need to take 5. Here's a tool I want to teach you before we leave this call. If
Yeah.
you rub your left hand in
Left
between
hand.
your ring finger,
This
left
one.
hand in between your ring finger,
Yeah.
and on the front and the back of your palm, that helps to calm down. I tell kids, if you're seeing red, if you're getting mad, rub
All
right here,
right.
because that will start to calm down the meridian that governs our fight, flight, freeze response. It's tied to our liver, which is tied to where we store our anger. And anger is actually a beautiful emotion to let us know there's something else going on.
Yeah.
And I did a class last month. It's okay to get mad.
I
You
think it
know?
is. Depending on what's happening around you, I think it is, because you can use anger and it's a higher vibration emotion than sadness. You've got
Yes.
sadness, it's lower down, but anger is higher up. But if you use the anger, it can help you to move higher.
And just even recognizing that you're starting to get irritated about something or annoyed. We generally don't go from 0 to mad without some indications that we're getting a little bit irritated.
Mm.
And there's only 6 basic emotions that we recognize around the world: sadness, anger, fear, happiness, surprise, and disgust.
Mm.
And so many of these, how I counsel my clients and friends and my audience, if you will, I do a lot of reels and I share a lot of information. I advise people to, if you're not enjoying the feeling that you're having, find a way to flip it, find a way to disrupt it, find a way to regulate your nervous system
Mm.
so that you'll be out of the stress mode where your blood leaves the part of your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain. It leaves it and goes to your fists or
Mm.
to your legs to run.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I teach tools that if you go to a massage therapist, it feels great, and a couple days later you're like, oh, I need another massage. I teach tools that when you leave my office or my Zoom room, you can use them for the rest of your life, and you can teach them to your kiddos and
Yeah.
your grandkiddos. And we can start to make an impact where if you drop a pebble in the water, it's going to make a bigger ripple because you're learning a tool that will change your life. I just had a client on a call. She's going to do a session with me and her niece who's experienced a lot of trauma and grief. And we're going to do an EFT tapping call so they can learn it together and practice it together. And it is about the consistency because when we're in the heat of the moment, we don't think clearly. Oh boy, it'd be a good idea to not throw an ashtray. You thought clearly in that moment. It's a good idea. I need my phone. Don't throw my phone down. And you went to another room so that you wouldn't make the situation worse. And your anger taught you to move. And that's definitely one thing that anger can do. Our mind can cause us to think about biting with our words or running and getting out of a situation.
Yeah.
So I love teaching, and I'm working on putting together a class next month. It's we're going to be regulating our emotions, increasing our emotional intelligence around anger, and it's free of cost, and it will be in 4 days. And anybody that's interested in that, we can share the links. And every month I do a second Saturday series. Next month, I'm going to be talking about sister wound. The month of June, I'm going to be talking about EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. And I don't know what July is yet. I like to be a little bit spontaneous. And then the first Friday of every month, I do a creative class called Farting Around with Friends. And we do something creative, but I also talk about your mind that says, I'm not creative. I can't create this, that negative self-talk. I'm not very good at this. I can't do that. So we do exercises to work through that.
That's good. I mean, obviously, a lot of people out there will say that things that they can't do. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I've been through a lot of different things I've learned. But I tend not to be one of those people that says, I can't. But I do procrastinate quite a bit because I don't know if it's just not being sure, not feeling certain about certain things. So, like when I decided to write my book, it took 12 months to write and publish it. I've never written a book before. I didn't even know how to publish a book, and I published it myself. But the writing process was one where I'd start and I'd get so far in, and then I would stop and I wouldn't look at it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And every day I'd get up and think, I should write something, and I didn't. I should write something, and I didn't. And then it forces you then, after so many weeks, you're forced into thinking, do you know something? I've got to do this now. I've got to do this. And you just get in and do it. But I hate the down periods where you just feel as if you're procrastinating all the time. And that's what I found.
I call it the shoulding on yourself. You're shoulding on yourself. I should do this. And I love to switch languaging in my head. And I've been doing that since I was in my 20s, at least 30 years. And, if your computer is stuck, right? Your computer's stuck. We hit Control, Alt, Delete, and we reboot it. So cancel, clear, delete is something that someone taught me in my 20s. And so when I notice a thought process that is keeping me stuck, I'll say to myself, or maybe out loud, cancel, clear, delete. But then I'll replace it. So I could should all over myself. I shouldn't should anymore on myself. Or I could shift it. I could do something today. I could write today. I get to write 10 minutes today. And I get that because the next book that I'm working on has been in my mind for, it started in the therapy counseling session six-ish years ago. And it's going to be children's stories for kids of all ages. The Adventures of Mr. Lucky Cattails. Now, I already know this won't be the first topic, but I started a year ago. I have sticky notes. I have all these ideas. I've started and I've stopped. And if I should it on myself, if I say it should have been done by now, I probably wouldn't even, I'd be like, you're right. It should have been done by now. And it isn't. So let's just move on to something else. So there are different ways and different tools that we can use when we notice we're stuck. And usually it's in our thinking. If you make spaghetti, and you have a strainer and you strain the spaghetti, get the water out of the noodles. Let's put a bunch of rocks in there and some sand and and then as we sift it, we wonder why the big rocks are still stuck in there. Like, here's a big rock. Let's see what it says. Oh, it's just a little picture,
Yeah.
of a house and a snowman that goes along with my Lucky Cat stories. But the sand will sift through. The
Yeah.
big rocks that get stuck are like thought patterns that we may not be aware of. And once we're aware of them, then we can cancel, clear, delete, replace them. We can EFT tap we can tap through what's going on with them. When we remember something, that's really helpful with the EFT emotional freedom technique, or even the rapid resolution therapy. I can work with you so that you change your mindset so that nothing is important except air. It's important to breathe. It's
Yes.
important to drink water. It's not important to write books.
Mm.
It is not important like breathing and drinking water and eating food. So we assign different value to some things so that our subconscious mind, because eventually you're like, yeah, it is important that I get this book done. And then you're like, I got to do this book. And it's in a place that's less ease. And it's like,
Mm.
I should have been done a year ago. So now I got to do it now instead of I get to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is I hear what people are saying in their stories. And then those that are open to subtle shifts make subtle shifts. And I'll have them play around with the word sorry. Do you notice that you use the word sorry often?
I
Do you
did.
notice?
I did
Mm,
used to quite a lot because I was always saying, I'm sorry to him. I'm sorry. Even
mm.
when it wasn't my fault, I was still sorry.
And then did you shift it from saying that, or is that because you're no longer in that relationship?
Oh, we're not together. It's no relationship. So
Mhm.
I'm on my own. I'm single.
Well, no, notice if you say sorry, even if you bump into somebody at the grocery store, or, what I started to notice when I was grocery shopping was how often, more often than not, women would say, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I'll say, oh, save your sorries unless you run over my toe or, bump into me. And when we could use excuse me
Yeah.
in replace of sorry. Or if we're running late, I'll say, thank you for waiting for me instead of I'm sorry I'm late. Like
Mm.
using the word sorry for apologies. I'm sorry that I said that. It must have hurt your feelings. How can you ever? I hope that you'll forgive me. Please forgive me, and I will do my best to not say that again. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me. Like save our sorries for apologizing
Yeah.
versus owning something that isn't ours to own.
Mm. That I've never heard that before. So that's something new that I've learned then. Uh,
Good.
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. If I have a little bit of time, I'd love to share with you a story I was sharing with Jessica, and that's
Hmm.
how we connected. Um, we were on a coaching call. She's my marketing mentor, and we were talking about money. And I have had a lack mindset.
Hmm.
And even though when my father passed away 30 years ago, I inherited $250,000.
It's truth.
And over the last 30 years, well, actually over the last 25 years, I've spent about $10,000 a year to help offset what I wasn't earning to cover my living expenses over time. Or I, bought some things, but it was an average of $10,000 a year. And then I was to the point where I literally didn't have a pot to pee in. I moved into some friends on at their beautiful farm, 50-acre beautiful farm, um, with cedar trees and woods and open area that you could see the birds flying. You could fly a kite, and I got to play with their kids and climb apple trees and sit by the beehive. But I was literally in a 10 by 12 small little room with no plumbing, no running water. And so in the middle of the night, I didn't want to get up in the winter and go to their farmhouse to go to the bathroom. So I had a 5-gallon bucket. I put a little seat on it and I covered it up and I put wood chips in there. And that's what I would use in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom.
Jeez.
And that was when I was writing the chapter Entangled No More. And the subtitle is Women Who Broke Free from Toxic Relationships, Building Their Own Empires. The
Mm.
building their own empires part is the part that I couldn't own. I'm like, I don't have a pot to pee in. I'm not building an empire. And then I realized as I started to change my mindset, that I am the empire. I am my temple. And as I started to do some deep work, mostly myself with the EFT tapping, but with a couple of trusted practitioners, friends who were just good listeners and could help me see some patterns that I couldn't quite see myself. I paid cash for my used car 2 months ago. I have $5,000 in the bank. I'm paying for a trip in September. It will be paid off before I even go there. And like my mindset is such that I am investing in myself. I'm investing in mentoring. I'm investing in new clothing that I hadn't done for so long. I'm great at thrifting. I love thrifting, but I'm investing in ways that I never did in my self-care. I have a massage scheduled a couple weeks from now, taking a Friday off. I've worked a lot of overtime in my job, but as I've been investing in my business and investing in myself,
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with money, because money is just energy. Things are turning around so beautifully for me that people are coming to me saying, how can we work together? How can I need some help? Can you help me, Kristine? And I'm saying, when can we do this? So I do a lot of my work on the weekends. But if I didn't have this job, this business, I'd be probably flicking the TV channel or, on the weekends, I'm single, I live alone. I live in an area where I have a couple of friends, so I don't have a lot of things to take me outside of my home. So I'm working my business in my off hours, but that's my life's purpose. That's my life's work.
Yeah.
Not to put on a hard hat and go climb ladders. It's paying for a lot of things for me to get my financial obligations from the past. I will be debt free in less than a year. And I had a huge mountain of debt, huge, like over $20,000. So I'm doing this in the last couple of years when I moved to a new area and really invested in my healing. And now I'm bringing that even in a more focused way to others with the help of Jessica with my messaging and just refining some things. And she's helping me to put together this class that I'll do every month. Every month we'll do something around emotional regulation. Next month is anger. The month after that, who knows what it'll be. I'll pull it out of my hat and we'll talk about it and I'll share tools, practical tools you can take home.
Yeah. That sounds really good. The finance part of it is something I've struggled with over the years as well. And quite honestly, it's like I seem to get into a sticky situation where I've got no income. What from my past when I was in employment, right? And anything happened or crossed us, like a manager who was a bit of a bully or whatever, I would just pick my handbag up and walk out the door and not even think about how much money I'm going to lose by just leaving this job. And I've done that 3 or 4 times over. In one of the jobs, it was like I'd just got my degree and I was hired for a college, and it was like 22,000 a year. It was my highest job at that point, and within a few months, I realised the manager was a bully, and I left that job, and I didn't have another job to go to. But because I stayed as long as I could, I lost my self-esteem and I felt like I was on the bottom. And from there, that's when all of the other things come tumbling down. Not being able to find any way of replacing the income I'd lost and having a mortgage to pay and 2 daughters to look after, it gets very difficult. And that was when I ended up having to sell the house because I couldn't continue to pay the mortgage. And I thought, well, I don't want to be repossessed. Like, and just lose everything.
Right.
And he ended up in a rented place until the house was sold. So I've been up, I've been down, and you just like continue. So I've had times when I've been in self-employment and it's been really good because like I didn't have to work like 7 days a week, and I could take holidays when I wanted to. The business was bringing the money in whether I was there or not, and that was a really good time. Was my own business in property management, and I really enjoyed that period. But now I'm in a similar thing again. I've lost my financial security, and I'm striving to sort of get into like and work out, because I still haven't really got it defined properly, and work out how I'm going to actually earn an income and what I'm going to earn the income from, and all of the different things that you've got to think about. I'm still in that process, even though I've published a book and I've got an idea for a second book, and I've launched merch on Amazon, and I've got 2 different websites, and I've got YouTube channels, a podcast. I'm still in a position with the finances, trying to find out how am I going to regain my financial security, and get onto a better footing. So I'm still in that process. So I know where you've been and where you're coming from. So, but good that you found someone like Jessica to.
Oh, she's been wonderful. She was an author in Entangle No More. That's when we met after the book came out. Loraine, I consciously chose to stay in my job. One of my managers' name is Billy, and I nicknamed him Bully. And this past year, what I've learned from him, I decided I didn't want to change jobs because I needed to focus on my life's work and learning a new job. And I didn't want to do that. So I learned that he was such a great teacher for me to not take the bait when he was being mean, because I know it's coming from his discomfort. And it's changing, because I'm changing, because I'm responding differently rather than reacting in a way that, you can only say so much to an employee, your boss, basically. Can't throw an ashtray at him, can't
No.
tell him he's number one with a finger gesture. So I'm really grateful that I stayed, because it's helped me to get to the next level in my healing journey. And so when we have those twisty, turny, mucky times, just sitting in stillness sometimes, and knowing that sometimes I don't do anything for my business, and I just take a little bit of time to rest, and something then will come to me, an opportunity, or I'll see an idea and I'll be able to run with it and create an offer that I can, it's about knowing who we can help. Like, I know I help women who have bottled up anger. I know I can help women who have relationships that are becoming difficult because of unresolved anger. I know I help women who are ready to release some of these patterns. And now that I know that, then I can start to speak to them and have, now I have my life set up so that I know on the weekends and a couple of evening nights, if need be, I can work with them over Zoom, so I'm setting it up so that when they're ready, I'll be ready. And that's what Jessica has helped me with, very much so. And she did a lot behind the scenes for me. I'm not as technically savvy as I'd like to be. If I didn't have my full-time job, where I work 40 to 50 hours a week, and I'm outside in very cold winter weather and very hot weather in the summer, and I'm wearing extra gear, I'm carrying a backpack with 20 pounds on my back, it can, when I get home, I need my rest.
Yeah.
And so it's been helpful to have her do a lot behind the scenes for me. So
Lots of businesses like yours do have a lot of behind the scenes people. If you're not tech savvy, like you say, for websites and videos and things like that, there's a lot of people that just want to concentrate on their work, and they have others that come in to give that support. So I think that's important to recognize that it's not
absolutely.
because, lots of people who start off as self-employed in their own right have to use outside contractors, virtual assistants and things like that, because you don't have all the skills you need in order to like do that business.
Yeah.
Just
Well, and
remember.
right now, what I'm having, she built my back end so that I have a page and we work together, and she built the offers, but I'm still doing everything else. I don't have a virtual assistant. I'm not at that state yet, but eventually I'll get there. I'm managing 2 Facebook groups on my own, but I'll take a couple hours on the weekend and I'll schedule events. I'll schedule posts out for 2 weeks. And then I can post things as I'm inspired throughout the week. You know, take
Yeah.
a picture of a bunny rabbit and I'll talk about it. So,
Well, we've got less than
you
a
know,
minute now, so we're nearly
okay.
at the end here. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you for the opportunity to get the message out to help people who want to dive in deeper, in 2024.
it's been great to talk to you, Kristine. We'll catch up again on Facebook and in Jessica's group as well.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.